In the spring and fall of 2004, my congregation, the Riverside Church in New York City, sent me across the nation to promote what we were calling prophetic justice principles. It was a part of what we called Mobilization 2004. My tour was co-sponsored by the Let Justice Roll campaign under the auspices of the National Council of Churches. I spoke in nearly 40 major cities at interfaith services with a focus on putting the issue of poverty onto the national agenda as a concern of moral and spiritual urgency. Although efforts were made to capture media attention for these events, I had the strong impression that certain restraining forces were blocking normal levels of coverage. The Left Behind report, which we've just heard about, confirms what I had come to believe, that progressive voices are at a distinct disadvantage when compared to conservative access to print and TV representation. So what accounts for the glaring disproportion? I've listed some dots for myself: political pressure to exclude the progressive voices, economic interests of media corporate leaders preferring religious leaders who speak out of conservative ideology, media perception that serious religion in America has a conservative tone, that the loudest voices or the more shrill expressions make better news, or that the progressives' tendency to be more analytical or balanced renders the perspective less amenable to news coverage, or that conservatives were more media savvy and more aggressive in seeking to be the go-to voices, or that the religious right had been more diligent in encouraging the placement of religion editors and reporters who are more sympathetic to the conservative perspective or less inclined to do the more conscientious research into more complex and diverse religious and political positions. Well, whatever the causes, the consequences are disheartening and problematical. If the conclusions of the report are proven to be adequate, such findings will lead to further erosion of the public's confidence in the media's commitment to fair and balanced reporting. Greater concern will be raised about how free our press is from external and internal manipulations for interests driven by greed, power, and political control. There will be more abandonment of mainstream media towards greater reliance on internet sources for what possibly may be sometimes more objective, even though internet reporting is also tainted by the same temptations plaguing mainstream media. The report, if taken seriously, may serve to encourage the media to invest more time and energy in giving religion the respectful, balanced coverage it needs and deserves. We can no longer accept the simplistic identification of religion with one camp, or to see all religious issues as falling between two polar opposites with the usual sides arrayed against each other. There can no longer be the assumption that nothing noteworthy is taking place in the broad middle. The polar fringes do not hold all the promise for calling our nation to health and wholeness. Perhaps the report can encourage the discarding of our neat categories of where the action is. In our time of alienation, separation, vilification, and demonization, it could be that an effective call to forgiveness, understanding, mutual respect, and healing could be news that merits a headline, 2 columns, and maybe even a color picture. It is time for progressives and the media to have serious conversation about what can be expected from each other and to what standards we are willing to be held accountable. It is good news that progressives are mobilizing for more vigorous and more effective use of the media for ensuring that the public will have access to perspectives they may not have received in the last few years. Now, I am retiring on Friday, I think, June the 1st. And my next work is to be involved in what I'm calling Healing for the Nation's Foundation. And people have said, Jim, you're in trouble. People are not interested in healing at this time. This is the beginning of a campaign year, and they want to fight like mad. Question, is it possible that a perspective that challenges us towards healing, towards mutual respect, can be heard and effectively promoted through the media? Perhaps a new conversation will say maybe it can be, but perhaps the progressives have got a lot to learn, and some of it will be learned from conservatives so that we can make the impact to balancing what has been out of balance for quite a long time. I want to say that the next speaker is Rabbi David Saperstein, Religious Action Center of Reformed Judaism.